Hello and welcome. I'm Ann Weiser Cornell, and this is Support for Stressful Times. And we get to spend a half hour together with tips and mutual support and connection around what do we need? What do we need for especially emotional support in stressful times? There's other kinds of support we might need. This is about the stressful emotions that arise and how to be with our emotions. The difference between being with your emotions versus either being flooded by them or trying to push them away, fight with them. The middle way to be with our emotions, but also be bigger than they are, to be present with our emotions. That's the fundamental message that I like to give people, because my life up till now has been dedicated to learning about how to help with stressful emotions. First of all, my own, and then passing on those messages to other people. So here we are together, and I'm going to start with a question that somebody wrote me in an email yesterday, one of the people who's here now. And I also want to have you be open to writing in the chat if you have a question about emotional support in stressful times. If you have a situation that you're in that's hard to deal with, especially because of the emotions that arise, any situation that's hard to deal with, it's hard, partly because of the emotions that arise. So I got this question from one of you saying, I'd like to know more about how to work with being upset by little things that don't seem to be that big of a deal. So can we imagine that there? You're upset by something and you feel like, wait a minute, I'm really upset, but that thing I'm upset by doesn't seem to be that big of a deal. Well, I find that interesting as a situation, because I wonder, what part of us is it that says, oh, that's not that big of a deal? Anything that isn't climate change is not that big of a deal. But what part of us has said about this upset, oh, don't be upset by that, it's not that big of a deal? I wonder if that is an inner critic or a protector part. Well, we don't know. It might just be wisdom. But let's have an open mind. If you are upset by something and a part of you, or you hear an inner voice saying, well, that's not that big of a deal, I shouldn't be upset by that. Keep an open mind, because the reason that something in you is upset is not yet truly known. I start by noticing that I'm upset, right? Has this happened to you? I start by noticing I'm upset. I'm bothered, I'm irritated, I'm agitated, I'm bugged by something. Now I want to use presence language to be able to be present to those feelings without being taken over by them. So I'll shift my language and I'll say, I'm sensing something in me is upset. I'm sensing something in me is agitated. I'm sensing something in me is worried, preoccupied. That language and the attitude that comes with it will be about not judging, not judging. So I wonder if this is not that big of a deal is a kind of judgment. Something in me is upset, and I want to treat that with the respect that all my feelings deserve and say, hello, I know you're there, and I'm listening. There's something about this situation that brings this feeling of upset. Now, that's a nice sentence. You might want to give that a try with your own feeling. You've got a stressful feeling, upset, agitated, angry, sad, and then say, so there's something about the situation Maybe you know specifically the situation, or maybe that's something you're wondering about as well. But there's something about this situation or a situation that brings this feeling of upset. The sentence, there's something about, is a way of holding a kind of open curiosity. You might even give that a try. You've got a sense of open curiosity about this feeling that I've got. There's something that brings this. There's something about that that brings this feeling. And wait a while, sense into it for what comes when you say, there's something about that that brings this. You might discover something that surprises you. You might discover that this situation reminds you of one you went through in the past, or it reminds you of a story that you heard. Or you might discover that it isn't so much the situation that brings the feeling, but something about being powerless over it, or something like that. So the openness to what we feel becomes possible once we say, I'm sensing something in me feels that way. And I hope you're giving that a try with any stressful feelings you're feeling these days. Well, I said people could put questions in the chat, and we've got one from Shannon. The situation is my son is now being asked to not return to school due to lack of emotional regulation. He has disabilities. That sounds difficult, Shannon. Now looking to send to a partial hospitalization program for emotions. He is 9. I have a history of severe sexual trauma and childhood abuse, and I cannot seem to be okay with him going any place. I cannot seem to settle, ever. He triggers all of my emotions. Please help me learn to sit in presence. Wow, that just sounds very difficult. And maybe one of the way you can approach that even right now is to acknowledge to yourself, as if you're a friend saying to those feelings, that sounds really difficult. This is hard. And then here and now, feel your body, and everybody might want to try this. Feel your body settling, sitting on what you're sitting on. Feel your feet. Wiggle your toes a little so your feet come more into your awareness. I notice whenever I take time to consciously feel my feet, my breath gets deeper. And then I consciously become aware of my seat and the sense of contact there. My breath gets deeper. It's a kind of soothing breath that my body just naturally gives me when I can feel my body grounding that way. And in the middle area of the body, throat, chest, stomach, there's often something difficult. Notice if you have something like that. Agitation, tightness, heaviness, as you are in the situation you're in, as you think about the situation you're in. Your body often gives these signals that something is hard to bear or hard to deal with. And pausing to sense in your body is a helpful thing to do. There may be a part of us that wants to run away from painful body feelings. Well, if that is true, then noticing that. With the body grounding, it begins to be possible to feel what we feel, even if it's uncomfortable. Give ourselves that gift of our own presence. And let a gentle hand move to the place in your body where you're feeling something difficult. Not to try to soothe it, but just to give it your presence, your company. As if you're saying to this uncomfortable feeling in your body, I am with you now. I am with you now. This is inner relationship. It means that the painful and difficult ways we're feeling are not everything. They're real, and they can be very challenging to feel, but there's more to you than that. And we can experience, don't just believe me, you can experience directly that there's more to you than your challenging feelings by bringing awareness into your body, by feeling the painful ways that you might be feeling there. Not always, right? Not always, but probably Shannon is. Putting a hand there as if your hand says to the feeling, I'm with you now. Or you can say that yourself, I am with you now, or both. The secret is that we're not trying to fix this feeling, make it change, make it better, but we're understanding that this painful feeling is this way for some good reason. That takes us back to our first question. Maybe a part of us says it's a trivial reason, but it's some good reason from its point of view. So we're treating our feelings with respect. But treating them with respect is not the same as letting them take over and drive the car, get in the driver's seat. Treat our feelings with respect, compassion, gentleness. But the one who's treating them with respect is bigger than the feelings themselves. And we can feel that getting bigger by using this kind of process that includes I'm sensing something in me feels so and so. Bob writes, feeling powerless resonates to things in my life that caused fear and agitation. Oh yeah, I was talking about how feeling powerless might be what's going on. You can discover that by listening. It sounds like you did that, Bob. Very good. And Sandra writes, something in me feels like a child who wants to run from a fear situation. Great. Notice how nice that is to say something in me feels like a child. And what a difference that makes. I feel like a child. I feel small. I feel overwhelmed. I feel powerless. Well, but what if it's I am sensing something in me feels like a child? Isn't that lovely? If I'm a child, if I feel like a child, there's a lot of helplessness there. It's kind of a stuckness. I don't know what to do. I'm like a child. I don't have resources. If we change our language, and with the language, there's an attitude change as well. For me, there's often a posture change. Like I find myself sitting up straighter when I say, I'm sensing something in me feels like a child. It brings a breath for me, and I hope it does for you too. And now that I'm saying something in me feels like a child, I'm here to give company to that one that feels like a child. That to me is just magical. I'm here with the one that feels like a child. It may be magical, but it also takes repeating. It takes time. It doesn't necessarily happen instantly. Say the language again and again. I'm sensing something in me feels like a child, even though it feels like all of me. Okay. Khan is asking, is it better to stay in your body? Yes, it is. Staying in your body keeps you in the present moment, keeps you in the here and now. And all change comes now. It's now that we regret the past or celebrate the past, that we remember the past. We're doing that now. And it's now that we're anticipating the future and worrying about what might happen. So by coming in the body now, you really have all your past and your anticipated future. You have your relevant past and your anticipated future. It's all here now. And in the now, the next step of change can emerge. As you stay with how your body feels right now, you'll discover small shifts and changes, not because you tried to shift anything, but because you're present, sensing how it is. If you ask yourself how your body feels, watch out for the language of, well, it always, or it usually, or it often, because those words indicate that we're not actually sensing how it is now. We're sensing sort of a history or repetitive it often, it usually. How is it now? Okay, okay, it's often that way. Let's check if it's that way right now. Diane writes, I'm sensing a feeling of being overwhelmed, like inviting a tornado to continue in the situation. And I found a part that's exhausted and wants a respite. Good for you for being aware of that. It sounds difficult. But finding that language, like a tornado, takes us a step toward being able to be present and be bigger than the situation itself. I'm sensing being in this situation feels like I'm in a tornado. Well, it already felt like that. But now that you name it, there's a little more of a possibility that there'll be something next, a sense of the next step. Stay in the body and listen. By listening, I don't really mean it's going to talk to you or that you're using your ears. When I say listen, I mean having the attitude of a listener to whatever arises there through images, emotions, memories, and so on. Catherine writes, following in you in this process this morning answers my question about patience. It shifts my merging with difficult emotions so that I'm able to be present with myself. And it takes a lot of practice. Good for you, Catherine. William writes, I get an image of my father when I was young, moving suddenly, which I found to be threatening and the implication I'd better obey and do what my parents say, which involves very unhelpful behaviors to be like them. William, that sounds like a great discovery. It's a good example of what I was just talking about, that in the body right now, by listening, we may get images and memories. Yours was that typical thing that happened in your childhood of your father making a sudden movement that implied you'd better obey. I was just imagining the movement was something like that, readiness to hit. Now that you are able to be with that younger you inside who's carrying that hard time that you really felt you had to be the way your parents were or the way they wanted you to be. You could be with him and say, I hear you. Daniel writes, I was one of those so buried, was blessed with a supportive counselor who patiently sat, patiently asking me to open up. She introduced me to focusing. That made the difference, but even then it took some time. But when the first drop hit the parched land, amazing. So today's word is patience. Today's word is patience, and patience is a powerful quality. But if you feel like it's hard to be patient, you might imagine a situation where patience wouldn't be hard. Like on a beautiful day without any place to get to, you're sitting outdoors and a little bird or animal peeks out at you from some nearby bushes. It's not a dangerous animal or bird. And how nice it would be to just sit there a while and create a calm enough atmosphere that that little creature would be safe enough to come a little closer to you. That's the quality of patience. There are times when patience is no trouble at all. And we can imagine that, and that allows us to know that we do, all of us have that power of patience when we need it. And then when it's not there, then we can say, I'm sensing something in me is feeling very impatient right now. And we hear that. Marguerite writes, I have a misunderstanding with a friend which scares me a lot. Yeah, of course it would. I realize now my mom often assumed the worst of me. Okay, so you start with the scared feeling about the misunderstanding with your friend. And you said, I'm sensing something in me, feel scared about that misunderstanding. And then it sounds like what came next was something about your mom and your relationship with your mom and how she assumed the worst of you. I'm guessing that something in you is scared that your friend will assume the worst of you. And you can let it know you hear that. It makes so much sense. And yet, at the same time, in doing that, we can also feel the difference between this situation now with a friend and my childhood with my mother. So, this acknowledging allows a separation, whereas without awareness and acknowledging, our past and our present they get mixed up in each other. So nice, so beautiful. Haja writes, I have a lot of deadlines in my life just now. The expression brings a downward feeling, but the sense of all these timelines is like brick walls. Oh, your deadlines feel like brick walls to something in you. And I start to take out the bricks, and then there's a hole through several walls, and a big breath comes. There you go. Nice. Estella says, tomorrow's my birthday. My friends invited me to a dinner. Before the pandemic, I dressed up for a party and they stood me up. Nobody came. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Today, they're looking for me to go to dinner and celebrate, and something doesn't want me to expose me to that pain again. Well, Estella, I have a little piece of practical advice for you if you want to hear it. And that is, have your friends come to where you live, your apartment, and pick you up and go together with you to the birthday party. So you're sure you won't be alone there. I would ask them to do that. But back to our topic for today, which is the pain from the past needs company so that we can start feeling how the present is different from that. That very painful time when nobody came to your party. I'm so sorry that happened. And you can be with that place in you that's feeling still the pain of that and be present there. Catherine writes, imagining a place where patience is possible brings tears as I admit how scared I feel about my husband's and my serious health challenges. Yeah. You can be with the scared about the serious health challenges. That's not the same as letting the scared take you over. Scared can be here somewhere in your body, and you can put a hand there and say, I hear you, I'm with you. And doing that actually makes it more possible for us to face the world, make choices, make decisions, do what needs to be done. If we're taken over by our feelings, we can be less able to make clear decisions. But if we're present with our feelings, we can also be clear about what needs to be done. That's how it is for me anyway. People are wishing Estella happy birthday. Happy birthday, Estella. And William can relate. He's had that experience too, of being stood up on his own birthday. Kathleen writes, I'm sensing something stuck in my ribs, sore and tight. Beautiful. So when you find something uncomfortable or in your body, describing it and then saying to it, I know you're there and I'm with you. How time flies. When we used to have this expression, how time flies when you're having fun. Well, I'm having fun being with you and hearing about your situations and seeing how kind you are to each other in the chat. And we're nearly done for today. So whatever's going on for you that's stressful in these stressful times, let's take some time to feel it and say, I'm sensing something in me feels. And then say to the feeling itself, I'm with you. I know you're there and I'm here with you. See, our feelings are like parts of us. They're like creatures inside of us that need our care and company. And then they can shift and change and move. Emotion is always in motion if we give it company, if we are there with a listening attitude, curiosity, openness, and so on. Khan asks, how do we make focusing a practice like meditation? How about setting aside a time every day to do it? Marion says, it always seems to be just right for what I need right now. Great. So happy. We're meeting in 2 weeks, but then we're going to take a break. I need a holiday break. So next time will be in 2 weeks, and then we'll start again in the new year. Bye, everybody. So lovely to be with you. Take care.